Hello everyone and welcome to a new ramble. But there will probably be some footage of me doing bandos on the screen right now. I'm not good enough to do bandos at the same time as I'm talking, especially in English. So this will be just random footage that didn't make it to the last episode. And in the meanwhile, I wanted to talk about hardcore and Ultimate Iron Man collection logging because I'm a big fan of the collection log, but usually when there's talks about collection logging or about cloggers, it's mostly about either regular accounts or regular Iron Man, and there's very little talk about hardcores and ultimates. And since I'm a big time hardcore and ultimate enjoyer, I have 2 ultimates that I play and 1 hardcore. I decided this would be a perfect topic to record a rumble on. I will not be talking about group Ironman because I don't feel very experienced or versed in the subject, so we will be focusing only on hardcores and ultimates this time. And I wanted to talk about how their modes affect collecting collection log slots. So we're gonna start with the hardcores, and obviously we have the wilderness. This is like the first thing everyone thinks about when they think about hardcores and collection logging. But wilderness is not only wilderness bosses or revenants or wildy slayer, but it's also dropping like half of your heart clues and a bunch of elites and masters. If you don't want to step into the wilderness as a hardcore, then you are extremely impeded by that. But the risk is also very high. So what we saw is a trend of hardcores doing about a bunch of wilderness content either at the start of their account or later on where they have a bunch of tank gear. But, well, that's kind of the point. Hardcores die, and when they die, it's game over. They are wiped for, at least for now, we have the collectionlog.net high scores. And there is a clear stopping point. So if you step into the wilderness, the risk of dying is very high. So you either will gain a little bit of an advantage by obtaining those wilderness-only collection log slots or doing more clues, but run the risk, ever-increasing risk of dying, and eventually you will die, or you decide never to step foot into wilderness, and probably someone who did it at the start of their account or just got lucky a couple times will outpace you at some point. What I think is the smartest choice would be to go to the wilderness a couple times. So you have to choose a couple goals that you can do early-ish on your account. Or if you already have a developed hardcore, you're dead set on doing collection logging, go there a couple of times, get all the easy collection log slots you can get, like Revenant Ether, the bracelets, etc., and then don't go there anymore. But it's like with gambling, I think. There's not a set number. Okay, I will go to the wilderness 10 times and then not go there anymore. So I think realistically, you just have to pick. Either I don't go to the wilderness at all, and I am at a severe disadvantage, or I am a wilderness visitor, maybe weigh the risk a little bit, don't go to Chaos Altar steps, or don't go to multi, but try to do the safer options, be prepared. I think that is the best approach to hardcore collection logging when it comes to the wilderness. But, well, there will be a moment where you will get found by some players and it might just be over. But the wilderness is not the only thing that is ending hardcore lives. Just PVMing also is a big contributor to the red helmets turning into gray. Collection logging takes a tremendous amount of time. We're talking years. And on a hardcore, when you're PVMing, you need to always be focused. Always. It's so insanely hard to do. I can't think of anyone that is always 100% on their game unless they don't play very much. Which in itself would be a disadvantage if you're going for collection log ranks. If you don't play much, then people who have time to play will outpace you, and that's it. But if you play a lot and you have to always be 100% focused while PVMing, that is an impossible task. You will slip up. There are some tools to help you, like the teleport crystal, we will be talking about that in a second, or just the old ring of life, but they can't always help. And the reason I'm talking about just the general PVM, also, one of the reasons that made me record this ramble is just yesterday, two very prominent hardcore collection loggers died. Chisel, who died to Akka, and Scared Zebra, who died to Musfa, which Akka is a raid boss, so I think that is very, very self-explanatory, but Musfa is just a regular plain old boss, comparable, I would say, to some Slayer bosses in difficulty. So when you have to always be 100% on your game, there will just come a moment where you aren't, where your focus will slip up and then you will just get wrecked. So just like I discussed with the Wilderness, you cannot really choose to skip all of those slots if you want to be competitive in the hardcore collection logging, because, well, if you skip the Wilderness and all of the PVM, that's like the section of bosses, that's the section of raids, that's a bunch of miscellaneous and other Slayer things. That's just way too much. You cannot realistically compete with skipping all of that content. So I don't have a solution. I just wanted to talk about that a little, but the skill of the general player base increased tremendously over the years, most likely due to the release of Inferno. People are much, much better than they were at the start of the hardcore mode. And I think the general PVM devs are... okay, let me rephrase. When hardcore mode came out, the top hardcores died to Mole. It was a rolling joke that the top hardcores like Hardcore Yumiya kept dying to Mole, and or they died to Zalra. Now you pretty much never hear about hardcores that die to Mole. Maybe once in a blue moon you hear of a hardcore that died to Zalra, but only because they forgot that they already used up their life, or they're a streamer and they didn't focus. So that's also coming back to the point of not focusing. But nowadays, I think the bar of PVM that stops hardcores in their tracks, that has a real chance to kill them, is like Gauntlet and Raids. So there is a lot of content you can do relatively safely than when hardcore mode was just coming out. But the danger is still there. And the last thing I think that is impeding the hardcores a lot is disconnects, which suck. There is a great video by Lydia Kenny who talks about all the precautions he takes when he plays hardcore. Like, he has a tether, which is additional internet connection, and he has a bat file on his desktop that will drop his internet connection instantly to connect to the tether, the second connection, and using Ring of Life everywhere. And also the new released teleport crystal, which I have a little bit of a thoughts about. I think it's extremely annoying, and when they proposed it, I suspected it would be terribly annoying, because not interacting with your screen is... you would have to make a muscle memory of just moving your mouse constantly when you're PVMing, and sometimes you just leave it when there's bosses like, I don't know, Hydra, you just do the counting. And I think you would have to have a lot of mental fortitude to stick with using the teleport crystal all the time when you're in combat, even though it's extremely annoying. And even then, it's not foolproof, because I don't know what's the lowest amount of not connected time you can set it, like 3 seconds, I think. Correct me, please, if I'm wrong. But you can easily die if you're disconnected for 3 seconds, even for 2 seconds or well, let's say 2 seconds. If you get caught, disconnected for a couple ticks at Gauntlet and the tornadoes catch up to you, that's GG. So even though the teleport crystal is a great tool and it helps a lot, it's not foolproof. So yeah, all of that. I would like to say that hardcore is a very, very interesting collection log high score to me, because there is always the potential of someone dying. When you look at the regular high scores for hardcores, not the collection log, just XP, there will come a point, or it already did, where the top people, if they are interested in skilling, do not need to do any more PVM. For example, at the start of hardcore mode, everyone has to get 99 Slayer, and if a person didn't have 99 Slayer yet, there was this potential that they may die. They had to do a bunch of Mole to be efficient, and later on, when Dragon Slayer 2 came out, you had to do it to be efficient, and then later on, Song of the Elves, all of those hard quests, dangerous quests, because they unlocked a bunch of content that was useful to skilling. But now, unless a new quest comes out that unlocks a bunch of content, like, for example, the new Desert Treasure 2, if it unlocks a bunch of skilling content, then yes, hardcores have to do it. But if it doesn't, well, they don't have to take pretty much any risk anymore. They can just skill in peace. They can do every single skill without much PVMing. And I don't think Desert Treasure 2 in itself will unlock any skilling upgrades. So what I'm trying to get at is the hardcore high scores when it comes to XP are a little bit stale, because there is not much reason for the people to die off. But when it comes to the collection log, I don't think there is any hardcore that completed all of the Wilderness collection log slots. I don't think there is any hardcore that completed all of the bosses. And then you have to combine the two. And then Jagex will add more bosses, probably more Wilderness content. So there is always this potential that a hardcore will die, and you will get ranks for free. And that is very exciting to me. So a good comparison, I hope it's a good comparison that I have, is that hardcores started really strong, at least compared to the ultimates, which we will talk about in a second. They started extremely strong, extremely fast, they climbed the ranks, but there is this glass ceiling that they're approaching a limit because they keep dying off, and it will be pushed slowly, but I think ultimates will be able to push faster. Still slow, but faster. And since we started talking about ultimates, let's talk about ultimates. So compared to hardcores, where there is the potential that your rivals will just game over rivals, I'd say it like it's a bad thing. I think collection logging is a great friendly competition, so please don't think that I'm like sweating for rivals or anything. Let's all talk about friendly competition. Other people in the high score have potential to die, but when you're playing an ultimate, the rise in ranks is much, much slower than any other game mode, but it's persistent. There isn't really much that can make you stop entirely unless you lose interest. And there isn't much that can make you... Well, I don't think there is anything that can make you lose the amount of collection log slots you have, like dying for a hardcore. So we already touched on playing UIM is much slower than the other modes, and that really has to be... cannot be understated. Banking cannot be understated. When it comes to Ultimate Iron Man, a bunch of stuff is made slower, significantly slower, simply because they don't have access to a bank. There is a bunch of activities that you have to do before so many things. For example, every trip to Wilderness means a dev pile and later rebagging. I watched a clip of Seibei doing a collection, not a collection, a clue step right after the Edgeville lever. I don't really remember what kind of clue it was, but there was a clue where he had to teleport in Edgeville to Wilderness. He went a couple steps and then he dug, probably right after the web. On a UIM, that wouldn't have been a 30-second step. It would be like a 10-minute step because you have to dev pile. and then you have to rebag all of your stuff, maybe 5 minutes. So that is a big time loss for a quick step. Then if you start any grind, you need to finish it or be at a disadvantage. For example, now I'm doing bandos because I have 2 Godsword shards and I would like to finish a Bandos Godsword and a Zami Godsword later on. And I cannot really stop doing bandos. If I stop doing it, I have those 2 dead Godsword shards in my inventory that will be just sitting there. And if I drop them, I lose every single bit of progress that I got already doing bandos. But if I keep them and I do something else, I have 2 dead inventory or bag slots that will hold me down a lot. It's either slower skilling or slower bossing because I can bring less supplies, or less space in the inventory bag for loot, which means future slower skilling or slower collection logging. You have to weigh pros and cons constantly. So while having to stick to a grind once you started it doesn't technically slow you down, we are all humans, and if you get stuck and get really dry in a grind that you hate, that will lead to burnout, and burning out is very detrimental to getting collection log slots, because if you don't play, you're not getting any. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is, well, not the last thing. The last thing in this section is that passive grinds are no longer passive on a UIM. I don't think that's something people really think about when they think about UIM clogging. But when you get a bird egg on a normal account or a hardcore or a group Ironman or a regular Ironman, you bank it, and then you do 1 trip to the woodcutting guild, and you bring 28. And but on a UIM, when I get an egg, I have to either go there instantly, which means like 28 trips instead of 1, or keep it and have a dead inventory slot. I cannot even bag the eggs. And UIMs cannot even do miscellaneous, so that's even slower. We have to get all of our eggs from either woodcutting or birdhouse runs. So you have to, once again, weigh your pros and cons of either having a dead inventory slot or doing many more runs to woodcutting guild, which is a wasted time. Another example is enhanced crystal keys. Once again, you cannot just stash them in your bag and do 1 big opening. Same with caskets. You can stack caskets, and I love stacking caskets, but that is, once again, a dead inventory slot. And totem pieces are another thing. If you get 1 totem piece during your Catacombs Slayer task, you either have to drop it, where other accounts can just bank it and progressively just get totems, or you have to commit to staying there for 2 more totem pieces, which might take like a day. So yeah, passive grinds are no longer passive on a UIM, and that's why you will see a lot less UIMs with completed stuff like Evil Chicken or the Dragonstone Armor or even whatever else, because or Scotizolog, maybe not a perfect example, but because you would have to commit to doing these grinds a lot more actively, and it would take a longer time. I touched before that there isn't really anything that will stop a UIM. There is not a dev like for hardcores where your account status is over, but there is wiping. Wiping on a UIM is losing all of your items, and it usually either happens because you took all of your stuff to the wilderness and someone killed you and they got your stuff, or you used a dev bank, which is dying to Hespori or Vorkath or Zolra. The items are stored there, but if you die anywhere else in the game, they will get deleted. And those situations where you lose everything are called wipes. And wipes happen relatively often for how infamous they are in the UIM community. We have a channel called UIM Mistakes, and there is usually 1 or 2 wipes every week, so they really do happen. And if you wipe on an experienced UIM, that can mean thousands of hours lost, and you will have to redo grinds you already did, which means no new collection log slots to obtain the items you need to keep doing collection logging if you want to continue. So that is one, extremely big time loss, and two, it can lead to burnout, which once again means you no longer gain any slots because you no longer play the game. So it's not as detrimental as dying on a hardcore, but it really is a big step backwards. And one last minor thing, it's very minor, but it's a pretty interesting UIM thing, so I thought I'd share. UIM high scores might be a tiny bit less collection log slots for everyone that they might actually have, because we have stored slots. For example, I have an ammo mold at Giant's Foundry that I didn't claim. I have the points stored there, and I will get it once I have enough steel bars to make some cannonballs. So that's what I call a stored slot. I technically have it, but my points don't showcase that. I did the work for that, but my Giant's Foundry log is not green, and I don't technically have an ammo mold, since I cannot store it anywhere, except not buying it is a method of storing it. So that is a way for me to use it later on, but I don't get rewarded with the collection log slot for it now. Another example would be all the wands at Mage Training Arena. I would claim all the wands. I would store all the points for the wands, and I would claim them only after I got Kodai, because there isn't really much point to getting a Master Wand beforehand. But that is like, I don't know, 4 collection log slots you're not getting. And as I said, it's really minor, but I think that's pretty interesting that we are slowed by those tiny little things. And of course, not everyone does it. I don't think many people care about stuff like ammo mold, but it's just one of the examples. So to summarize this ramble, I think we're getting at like 22 minutes. I don't think I touched about that, but I'm really interested in seeing more UIM and hardcore collection log slot content, either rambles or progression series or videos. Just, it feels like those two modes, UIM for sure, but hardcore's a little less, but it feels like nobody is even talking about that. Nobody's making videos. The only person I know that makes hardcore collection log slot videos was Fuse, and he died on his hardcore in the Wildy, and now I don't think he's going for slots on any account. So that is a ask from me. Make UIM and hardcore clogging a thing, put it on the map. So if you're clogging on one of those two types of accounts, talk about it more. And I would love to see a little bit of a discussion from people like Lone Jinrat. I know he's a regular Ironman, but I love his discussions, his calcs, everything. So if by any chance you see this ramble, please make a video about thoughts about hardcore and ultimate clogging, because I would be extremely interested in watching that. So yeah, put UIM and hardcore clogging on the map. Show that we exist. And it's not all just mains and regular irons. And yeah, I wanted to also touch about comparison between hardcore and UIM collection loggers. As I said before, hardcores started off stronger, but I think that the fact that there is a clear end to hardcores means that they will start approaching a limit, and it might be further and further between after we see hardcores breach new collection log records, and UIMs are slower, much slower, but they're slow and steady. We're like turtles fueled by self-hate, autism, and white monsters. Actually, speaking of white monsters, a tangent, sorry about that, but a tangent, or about energy drinks in general. Last week in Poland, the government voted that you will have to be an adult, which means 18 plus, and have an ID to buy energy drinks. So we had kind of a plague of kids drinking a lot of energy drinks, and that is kind of wild to me, because when I was growing up, I had, and I still have, a very weak heart, And I remember when I tried to drink coffee, this is a long tangent, sorry. When I tried to drink coffee, I would like feel my heart really palpitate, and it was very uncomfortable. So to see kids just chugging monsters very often, it it's a little bit concerning. But I was wondering if the situation is also visible where you live. Like, do you see a lot of kids drinking energy drinks, like those big cans energy drinks? And if other places are making steps to make them 18 plus, I don't know if that's a good idea, by the way. I'm not talking about the legislature or the law. I'm just saying that I don't think kids necessarily, pre-teenage kids, should drink energy drinks. But yeah, tangent over. I'm just curious if it's a worldwide situation or it's just here in Poland. Anyways, tangent over. I think that will be it for the Rumble. I don't often make Rumbles, but lately I was listening to a Seibei cast with Lone Jim Rat, which was, I think, my favorite episode. It was like 5 hours. And in there, they said that they encourage people to make their own Rumbles. So, yes, I will be maybe not making Rumbles, but I felt inspired to make this one because I love hardcore mode. I love Ultimate Iron Man mode. I'm going out for clogs on a UIM. It might not look like that because I have very little clogs done, but I'm doing my best. So I would like to see more people either participate in hardcore or UIM clogging or a discussion. Yeah, that will be it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you had a fantastic day. Let me know how the energy drink situation is at your place, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.